Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is a show where your questions make the show. Today, this is the show for October 2020. We're going to work the new format, which is going to be some shout outs. We're going to talk a little bit about one of my pieces of gear, new story, new section I've just added to the show. And we're also going to have some questions. I have a few questions that have come in over the last month. So let's jump right on in. The first thing is shout outs. I want to shout out to Michael Perry, number one. Michael Perry spent the day here yesterday. This is on October, gosh, I don't even know what October. I think it's October 11th today. It's Sunday, so that would have been October 10th. Michael Perry dropped by the studio, played some drums, talked about the community, talked about YouTube videos and all the things that go on there. And Michael was the one that started Drummers Den on Google Plus back in that day. And he's been a staple of the community for a long time. And we had some good conversation, some fun, played a little bit. And I just want to thank him for coming to Sanctuary Sound Studio. That's what my studio is called, and spending some time with me. So thank you, Michael, for coming down. The second shout out is a new channel, and this is probably, Michael's been around a long time, but the second one is a new guy I'm following and I'm trying to encourage, and I'd like you all to try to check out his channel. His name is Chadwick Perry. He does a lot of different types of covers, everything from very current, maybe some of his own stuff, some 70s, some 80s. He's all over the map as far as playing, and that's kind of why I kind of identify with him, because I like to play all over the map myself. I can definitely see he's been a professional musician for a long time, and he's starting his own YouTube channel, and it's hard to start a channel, it takes a while, but I want to give Chadwick Perry a shout out. Check out his videos. This week he did one on Oakland Stroke, the Tower of Power tune on Friday. It's like a 1-minute thing, but he really nailed it. And I knew he was a great player. That's why I've been kind of following before he did Oakland Stroke. He's done some really cheesy 70s stuff, which, I like to do cheesy 70s stuff. So we're kind of got a kindred spirit there. We like cheesy stuff, but we also like playing more progressive rock and other things. So he's got that thing. Plus he plays Pisces cymbals. He has some nice Pisces cymbals he plays occasionally. Among other cymbals he'll play too, just like I do. So check out Chadwick Perry and give his channel a shout out. And if you're somebody that you'd like me to check out your channel, maybe you're just getting started and you found this, leave a comment in this video or one of my videos and I will check your channels out. Most people I do subscribe to, I will tell you I don't have as much time for YouTube as I used to have, so I am catching videos, catch as catch can these days, but I do appreciate finding new great players. So Chadwick's one of them, and the old players like Michael Perry's been around a long time. So check those two channels out. All right. Today, let's talk about my next piece, which is a piece of gear. I forget what I called this segment, but I think I'm calling it something along the lines of the story behind the gear. So today's story behind the gear is about my DMR cast aluminum snare drum. Now, I've been playing the snare drum since, it's not dated. It does have the name of my drum, and it does have Dan's signature in it. I think I started playing this drum in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And this drum has a very unique story. I think it was 2008 or 2009. The owner of DMR Custom Drums, his name is Dan Rotelli, was living down here in West Palm Beach area. And he had a little shop in an industrial park with his partner, and they were trying to sell gear and make custom drums. And it was about 5 minutes from here. And one day I opened up Craigslist and I looked and it said, "Will trade drums, we'll trade vintage drums or used drums or custom drums for drum lessons. And it kind of hit me, and it was, you know, close. So I called the phone number up and I said, hey, I'm willing to give that a shot. What's it all about? And Dan and I talked, and it was right around lunch hour. And I said, well, I'll be down in 5 minutes. Where are you located? And it was literally 5 minutes from my house. And I drove over to his shop, and we walked around. He had a whole bunch of kits set up, and he had lots of stuff. He was buying and selling on eBay is what he was doing mostly. He also had just went to Taiwan to start looking for parts for his custom drums, DMR custom drums. He was looking for parts. He wanted to buy them from the wholesaler versus buying them from Drum Factory or Precision Drum Company or these other places where you can get parts for building custom drums. So I was talking to Dan, and I sat down and I played one of his kits and showed him I could play, and then I had him do something, and we spent about 5-10 minutes talking, and he had all kinds of gear in the place. One of those things was the concert toms in the other room. That's another part of the story someday. But so he said he was going to take some lessons. So he said, what do you want for the lesson? And we were walking through his shop, and he had a aluminum shell, a cast aluminum shell, which was the shell of this drum. And it was just aluminum colored, like the lugs here, like the tension casting here. And it was brushed, and I loved it. I thought it was great. And a couple of years back, I had played a Gretsch cast aluminum snare drum in Resurrection Drums. So I knew what cast aluminums could sound like, you know. So I thought to myself, I can get this guy to make me a drum to my specs, what I want. So I talked to Dan, and we said, can you make me this drum? And it was 6.5 by 14. It was cast aluminum. And I said, well, here's what I want. I want a Dunnett throw-off, an R1 Dunnett throw-off. Now, this is actually an R2 Dunnett throw-off because he knew Ron Dunnett from doing NAMM shows, and he actually called Ron up, and Ron sold him an R2, which are usually only found on Dunnett snare drums, just so you know. The unique thing about the R1, R2 system is you can actually take the snares off without having to do the loosening up the strings. And I have done that many times to change heads. The other thing I wanted was die-cast tubes. I said, I want die-cast tubes on this drum. And he had to source some die-cast tubes. So when we talked about what I wanted for the drum, he said, well, how many... I said, how much is this drum going to cost? And he gave me the price. And it ended up being about 3 months or 4 months of lessons I taught him. Because I was, when I was charging my price to pay off the drum. And we did them every week. And we became great friends. And he ended up giving me another drum, a piccolo drum. And then he built me this snare drum here, which is a solid walnut 1-ply drum with reinforcing rings that he made for me a couple years after this drum was made. But this was the first drum, and this is a DMR cast aluminum. Now, the reason why it's not brushed aluminum is because when he brought it back from Taiwan, there was a little scratch on the drum, and he never felt comfortable with that little scratch. I was okay with the little scratch. I was like, well, it's going to get scratched anyhow someday. Don't worry about it. But he wanted to powder coat it. He got really crazy about wanting to powder coat it. So we went to this powder coating place in Lake Worth, about 10 minutes from here. And in that, going to the powder coating place, I found the powder coating for this drum, which is printless. There was lots of black powder coatings, but usually if you touch them, you can see the prints. This shows none of the prints. So this drum is actually extremely unique. It's got this beautiful powder coating on it, kind of textured. It's got the DMR logo on it, and it's to my specs. It's got the R2 throw-off, cast aluminum, and everybody that hears this drum live, or if I take it to a live gig or bring it to a recording session, or when I did the Danielle McManus album, live album, I mean, the producers wanted to buy the drums from me. Both of these drums they wanted to buy from me. So this drum has got a lot of rave reviews. The secret to this drum is it is actually a Gretsch cast aluminum shell. It's made in the same factory in Taiwan as all the other cast aluminum drums shells are made in Taiwan, the ones for DW and Gretsch. So this is the exact same cast aluminum shell. I think the piece drum that's cast aluminum is the same shell. It's a company, I forget the name of the Taiwan name of the company, but it's famous in Taiwan. I think they're called Ming drums. So, as a matter of fact, I think these lugs look a lot like the piece lugs for some reason for that one year when it was built. These are aluminum lugs that came with the drum. So, anyhow, that's the backstory of this cast aluminum drum. It is 3 millimeters thick with a 5 millimeter reinforcing ring, which really isn't reinforcing, it's just the way they cast it. It looks like a reinforcing ring. And it's all powder coated inside. So the powder coating has had done nothing to the bearing edge, and the drum just sounds incredible. Now, I did try to put a 42 strand wire on it, but I've stayed with the 25 strand, and this is the original 25 strand I've had for a long time. I think I've changed the bottom head a couple times. My favorite heads on this drum are the CS black dot heads, coated black dots, but this happens to be a vintage ambassador that was given to me by Mike Frisano. So I've been using this for, I don't know, 6-7 months. It's still going. And it sounds great. And a lot of you guys comment about the snare drum, and this is the one most of you comment about. What's that snare drum? This is what it is. It's a DMR 6.5 by 14 cast aluminum with Bennett throw off, both sides, R2 throw off, and it's killer drum. So anyhow, I had one guy at one of the churches say, where can I get that drum? Dan is no longer in business, so he does not make this drum anymore. I think he made a total of 5 of them, and I think he gave one of the drums to Rich Redmond from Jason Aldean. So Rich Redmond's got one with red powder-coated lugs. I remember that. It was kind of black and red. But my drum is this one. You know, this was the one, and it's called the Hammer, and this is 001 of the cast aluminum line that they did at DMR. So I was an endorser for DMR for a couple years until the business went out of business. I never bought a kit. He wanted me to buy a kit. I never bought a kit. I would like to have had one of his kits, you know, but it didn't work out, you know. I mean, that's life. So, all right, let's start with the questions today. So that's the story behind the gear. And my first question comes from AR drummer, Adam. And Adam says, I hope you had a great birthday. This was on my birthday. Always enjoy your wealth of knowledge. Question, do you prefer wood snares or metal snares, and why? And the answer to that question, Adam, is I love metal snare drums. I love wood snare drums. I am actually a snare drum crazy person when it comes to that stuff. I've picked very unique drums for my collection, my drum collection. When it comes to wood drums, I like solid shell wood drums, 1 ply with reinforcing rings in the Radio King style. I have 2 of those drums presently, but I've had a bunch in my career. I'll probably do a story. I'll probably do about the gear story on my Noble Cooley and how it turned red and was silver sparkle-ish color for a long time, and why I still have that 5x14 Noble Cooley. That's my favorite. My first solid shell snare drum was a Noble Cooley. My second, my second snare drum that I have in the studio today, my snare drum, this DMR 7x14 solid walnut drum, is again another one of those solid shell drums. So made in the, actually this one, it's made in the Radio King tradition, and I even had it built with Radio King lugs. When Dan built this drum for me, he had die-cast hoops on it because I was big on die-cast because Noble Coolies had die-cast. But I've since come to find out that I love this drum with a straight edge flanged hoop, double flanged hoop straight edge. So it really has opened up, and I just used it on a cover today. A song called Healing Touch by Russ Taff, which is a CCM song, which will be coming out soon, may even come out before this, I'm not sure. But it was killing. This drum is killing. So anyhow, I love solid shell snare drums. Now, when it comes to metal snare drums, cast aluminums are killer. And the other thing I like is brass snare drums. So I have a brass snare drum, which is a Ludwig Superphonic, Black Beauty, and I also have this cast aluminum drum. So truthfully, I can't really choose between cast aluminum or wood. It's hard for me to choose. Of all my drums, I've got a good mixture of both. Brass. The only thing I would tell you is I don't really like steel drums. I like brass drums. I like aluminum drums. Like an acrylite sounds great. I love solid shell drums. I even have a couple ply drums that I really like. I have a Gretsch 6.5 by 14 Gretsch shell snare drum that's ugly as heck. Matches my kit. That sounds great though. But Dan did the bearing edges and he did the snare bed on it, and that drum has really come to life too. So that's another one. Anyhow, hope that answers your question, Adam, because that's a really good question. But I don't think I answered it the way you wanted me to, because it's not an either-or thing. It's a both. That's the truth. Snares are a unique thing. They can really change a song. Having the right snare drum for a song can really make the difference. So I try to choose my snare drums wisely, and I choose it for the song, so you'll see lots of different snare drums. I have about 11 or 12 snare drums in the studio right now. I think the acrylite put me to 12. But bunch of brass drums, couple aluminum drums, couple solid shell drums, and then some ply drums. And all varying sizes too. I go from 10 by 14 marching all the way to a 3 by 13 piccolo. So I'm all over the map as far as sizes go. 13-inch snares. I've got 3 13-inch snares. Got an 8 by 14. I got 7 by 14, 6.5 by 14, 5 by 14, bunch of 5 by 14s. So truthfully, snare drums are what I love, and I love picking the right drum for the song too. That's another part of what I like to do. So that's why I have them. So anyhow, thanks for the question. Great question, Adam, as always. The next question comes from Laurie Jones, and he asks a question. He said, I got my first set in 1976. He was telling me about his new beat hi-hats. He says, what are your current favorite hi-hats and why? Very best from Wales. Laurie, hi-hats are another one of those things that I have lots of different hi-hats for lots of different types of music and occasions. So I have 3 sets of Paiste hi-hats, maybe 4, depends on how I look at it. I gave a set to my son-in-law, a set of 13-inch Paiste Dimensions hi-hats, medium heavy. It may get traded back for my KZs. I have a set of KZ Zildjians 13-inch, and I also have a set of 13-inch Sabian AA's regular hats that I've had for a long, long time. But my first set of Paiste hats was a set of Rude hi-hats. So I still have my Rude hi-hats. Matter of fact, they're sitting over here. I was using them on something recently. These are my Rudes. This is the bottom of it. But this is 1984 Rude hi-hats, and I've had these since 1984. They've gotten a lot of use. I have a set of new beats, my second pair of new beats, that I bought from Dan Vitelli, DMR, with a 20-inch deep ride. And the long and the short of that story is those new beats have gotten a lot of use too. I love them a lot. When it comes to my Paistes though, I have a real affinity to these old 505s, which these were my brother's, and then they were mine, and then I gave them to my friend Scott. And then when I started using Paiste cymbals again, I asked Scott for these back, and I gave him a set of 15-inch rock hi-hats, which I hated, by the way. He hates them too, but I did get these back. And there's something about these hi-hats that are just perfect. They're 505 medium hi-hats. Now, I also have a set of 15-inch giant beats, which really has a nice sound. So on certain tunes, I pull the giant beats out. So between the Rudes, the 505s, and the giant beats, I got 3 different Paiste hi-hat sounds. I have another set of Zildjians that just showed up. A friend of mine who I'm going to work on an album with from Miami gave me a set of 14-inch Carope hi-hats. And I use them with my Caropes, my Zildjian Caropes. They're very dark, and I use them for most of my live church gigs. I've come to find out that the croaks really sound great in a low volume acoustic setting, which is what I play at church. Now, they will work when they're mic'd, and they will give you that really dark thing, but they don't cut through. And when I'm recording pop covers, if I'm not playing a jazz cover, usually the croaks are too dark. So I've become a Peisty guy, as you all know, and I really have an affinity to this 22-inch big beat ride, or my 20-inch, I guess, dark energy, Peisty dark energy ride I have, or my 24-inch giant beat. So those are the three Peisty rides I use all the time. I also have a 602-20. Favorite hi-hats right now, it's whatever is on the kit for the song I'm playing. So just like snare drums, I'm really non-committal on this stuff, aren't I? That's the problem when you have lots of gear, is you start to not have a favorite. Now, for a long time, when I first bought my Peisty cymbals, the early year of doing my covers, everything was Peisty, everything was giant beats. But now it's all over the map. It really is. I've become all over the map again. So that means I'm comfortable with what I have. So anyhow, I hope that helps. Okay, my next question comes from Bill Morehouse, good friend. This question came off of Instagram. He asked me if I was still doing Ask Earl Anything. And the question was about staging preamps for making drum covers or recording. And it had to do with playing. You set, like when I set up my studio, I set my gain staging on my board or my audio interface at a certain level for recording drums, which is going to be way back. But when you pick up a pair of brushes, which is quieter, do you change? He asked me, do you change the gain staging? And the quick answer to that is, for my drum covers, it's a no, I don't. Normally what I will do is, if I really don't have enough level, I will bring in a plugin in Logic called Gain, and I will boost the gain on the channel by 5 or 10 dB, whatever it is. Usually I can just move the fader up because I do have enough gain staging usually to get away with it. But my experience is I don't do that. Now, let me caveat that by saying, if I was doing a real recording for somebody, not my YouTubes, which I mass produce YouTubes, as you all know, those of you that really follow my channel know I have a lot of videos out. And the reason why I have a lot of videos out is because I do anywhere from 2 to 6 videos in a weekend. And that's just me goofing around usually. Michael Perry was here yesterday, and he was kind of amazed at my little factory I got going on here, because truthfully, it's a factory. I make X-Track stems audio drumless versions now, and then I bring it into Logic, and then I play the cover. And usually I am learning it and playing at the same time. And I rarely play a cover for longer than an hour. Every once in a while, it'll be a really tough song. And I do choose some tough songs for myself that I spend more time on. But as you can tell, the amount of work I churn out, the amount of covers that come out each week, I am churning stuff out. So I don't touch my levels on my board. I actually have a 24x4x2 Personas board, and I have it set up with a whole set of mics for Studio B and a whole set of mics for Studio A. And it's 8 mics. And if I'm doing a recording session for somebody, we might add room mics, or we might put a mic on the snare drum. Like today I have a mic on the snare drum, but I have 4 tom mics slotted. So I can do 2 toms up top, 2 toms on the floor tom. So the tom number 4 becomes my snare drum mic a lot of times. I rarely mic my hi-hat. But the one thing that stays the same is the gain staging. The gain staging is set, and I don't do it unless I'm doing a session for somebody, or we're recording another drummer in here, like I've done for my Paradise Hymns church album that I've been working on with our group, Paradise Hymns, which is what's called on Spotify. Look up Paradise Hymns. I'm on a couple of the tracks, but I have other drummers from the church that play on it too. And a lot of times we'll mess with gain, and we'll start getting into different, we'll start playing with things a little differently when I'm doing a session and I'm engineering, versus what I have set up for a drum cover. My drum cover template stays pretty the same. My gain stays the same. So do I recommend changing the gain? You can if you're using using a pair of brushes. Definitely raise the gain up. You're going to get a better sound out of it if you have a little more gain if you're playing delicately. But for me, it's not worth it for drum covers, so I don't do that. So I hope that answers that question, Bill. And my last question got in just before I came on a minute ago. Brian Corey asked the question. He said, "It's a question for Ask Earl Anything. How come cymbals sometimes hum? Like when you hit it, and then they settle down to a low-pitch hum noise, especially larger cymbals. Have you ever owned a humming cymbal?" So I'm trying to figure out what you mean by hum. So, I mean, every cymbal's got like an overtone. Well, let's put it this way. Most of the cymbals, except for UFIPs, have overtones that are harmonics from the main note. Now, I said except for UFIPs because I actually spent some time with a UFIP rep one day trying out UFIP cymbals. And I'll be honest, UFIPs are cast cymbals, meaning they're not a cast slab and then they roll it out. They cast the cymbal with the bell in it. And when they cast it, it's kind of like a bell. So UFIPs have got a bell-like tone and they've got a note. And that note is the same note with the overtone series. So UFIPs don't fall into this, but Paistes, Zildjians, Sabians, and everything else have these overtones. The way you know a good cymbal is if those overtones are not that overbearing hum that you're talking about, I think, Brian. Because if you've got a cymbal that's got that hum and it just sounds nasty hum, those are the kind of ride cymbals I don't like. So I try to find cymbals that have a pretty nice overtone series and doesn't have that nasty hum to it. Now, I think some other things that might affect hum is the cymbal stand itself. And that's why you need to have a cymbal stand with a good, nice felt on it or rubber washer underneath it. Okay, you need to have rubber protectors around the cymbal too, so you protect your cymbals. Something plastic, something that's not going to dig to metal. Metal to metal is not good. So that's another problem with guys and cymbals. They don't think about metal to metal. But you want to have a pretty nice overtone series and it doesn't have that nasty hum. If you're getting a nasty hum, it could be the stand it's on, but 9 times out of 10, it's just not a pretty cymbal. And you're realizing that it does have a bad hum to it. And I've talked to some professional drummers that say when they get those cymbals with the hum, those are the cymbals they don't choose. So for their cymbals, because they're listening for that. So I think that's what you're talking about, because most of the overtones on my ride cymbals all have a nice sound to it. And I think that's what you're looking for, is that nice, pretty sound. You want good overtones that really make the cymbal, give the cymbal character and stuff. Now, the bigger the cymbal, the lower the pitch. So if you got a 24-inch cymbal, it's going to have a lower pitch than a 20. And I've come to really like 22s and 24s for that reason, because I like that lower pitch. And lower usually equates to darker. So when we think of lower pitch, we think darker. When we think of Zildjian cymbals and we think of Ks or Sabian HHs or Byzance, what's that new line they've got that they're making kind of in the Carope style, handmade and hammered a certain way. Those cymbals are going to be darker. And in the old K lines, like the old Ks that everybody goes looking for, those cymbals sometimes had that nasty honk. I was listening to John Riley talking from Memphis Drum Shop not too long ago, talking about going through piles of Ks, and the ones with the honk was the ones they didn't want. So it is a choice thing. It's listening to cymbals, and that's why it's a good idea to listen to your cymbals before you buy them. And that's the problem with buying cymbals online, is if you don't hear the cymbal, you may think this is the coolest cymbal since sliced bread, and then you buy it and you get it home and you find out it has that something to it that you didn't like. So I recommend listening to cymbals before you buy them. Even this 22-inch Big Beat, which I bought online, had a video, and I listened to it, and I thought it was the cymbal I wanted. Now, the interesting thing about Paiste cymbals is Paistes sound the way they sound. So you can go through like a pile of giant beat 20-inch multis, and they're all going to sound pretty darn close to that multi right there. Same thing with the big beats. So Paistes are extremely consistent. When it comes to Zildjians and Sabians, not so much. Not always. They're not always the same. They're in the ballpark, but they're not always the same. If you ever watched Paul Francis picking cymbals out on Instagram, which I've done a few times, he'll sometimes be picking for artists, and he'll do it on Instagram. You'll see him go through a bunch of ride cymbals of a certain type the artist wants, and he'll say, no, this is the one. So he hears something in cymbals that are certain unique that when he's doing artist selection, he's picking the cream of the crop. Not every Zildjian's the cream of the crop. But the funny thing about Paistes are, if you like a Paiste cymbal, they're pretty darn consistent. So if you like Vinny's Modern Essential 22-inch ride, it's pretty going to be darn close to what Vinny's playing. That's just the way it is. You don't get uniqueness. You get sameness. And that's because Paiste's got a manufacturing style that basically produces very consistent cymbals. That's what they're known for. The Sabian Zildjians, you've got a little bit more variations. Now, that used to be the thing we loved, was finding that special cymbal. That was all part of it. But again, in our online buying world we live in now, it's a lot tougher to find a great cymbal. So I would recommend you hear the cymbal and know it's the cymbal you want before you buy it. And I don't have a problem buying Paistes. I've been great with Paistes. I bought all my giant beats online except for the 24-inch, which I went and bought at Guitar Center. And even this big beat and that thin 16-inch Paiste Crash. This was a friend gave this to me. My friend Steve Dupree gave me this cymbal. He didn't want it anymore. So I've been blessed to have friends that when they don't know what to do with gear, they hand me stuff. Michael Perry handed me something yesterday too. I'm very blessed, and thank you, Michael, for the stand. I'm going to find some use for that. But people know I'm a collector of stuff, so they hand me stuff. And it will get used. That's the thing about me. Anyhow, I think that's my last question for Ask Earl Anything. Again, I really want to say thank you. Thank you for watching the show. If you have a question, please leave a question. Please like and subscribe. I like to answer questions, and I answer questions from my videos, so I appreciate that too. But thank you all that watched the show, and I hope you enjoy it. And tell me if you like the new segments on shout-outs and, the story behind the gear segments. All right? Anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.